I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is Undo Redo. Let's take a look at all the things that happen in life that we would like to undo and have a chance to redo.
Hey everyone. I'm curious about how you guys are because I hear back from some of you sometimes, but I think this summer everyone is just busy, so I'm not hearing back. Plus, I just did a 3-part series of a book review, and a couple of my listeners don't really do the book reviews. They like just the regular podcasts. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. But you guys are my friends. Whether you've met me or not yet, I want to give you something right now. It's a guide for you. It's an outline for you to show up better for your kids, for you to get a handle on the way that you're responding to their choices, their fits, their behaviors, whatever. It doesn't matter if they're 5-year-old kids or 50-year-old kids, you guys. We need to be showing up for them in the best way for our sake. All right, so we're not showing up against them. So things like to stop being so angry with them. Maybe you ignore them sometimes when they do things you don't like, or you yell at them or tell them to stop yelling at you in a rude way. But we're the ones that need to regroup and to calm down and not demand that they take it back or change their behavior immediately. It just can be all a big mess, right? So grab the parent guide. It's going to take you through creating a simple outline to lead a family with connection, and connection being its top priority, right? Not allowing the cultural examples of over glorifying all their achievements or, correcting them all the time and punishing them to get the behavior you want. Because all that attention and all that power goes into authority if that's the case. And this guide definitely turns it on its head in the best way possible. And it's more accurate as to what is most important for their development and their growth and for love and connection. So if you want to make a greater difference in their lives, lead with humility and show them how dedicated you are to becoming a better version of yourself. That's how they're going to reflect on their own life, is when they see it for themselves by watching you do it. Not when they're told to, just so you know. They'll just get defiant, okay? So get me your email on whatever social media or website, and you'll receive it quickly. But now that I've mentioned the email, my media was hacked, and so I'm considering changing the name from Life Coach Elisa to something different. So for those of you listening in the future, check the website first. Right now it's still Life Coach Elisa, but with my Facebook and my social medias being hacked, I might rethink what I named it. So just check in the episode notes and whatever's linked to this podcast for my email. Okay, that was a long intro. Sorry about that. Lately, I've had a lot of thoughts going on in my mind about how couples parent differently. And I'm just going to do a brain dump for this episode, but here's some of the examples of how my stories have gone. All right. Sometimes one of us in our partnership, right, in their parenting game is on top of it and one of us isn't. And like, maybe sometimes I saw it as a bad thing, but I kind of look back and go, now with my coach brain, I'm like, oh, it was awesome because we took turns. Like he was on it that day and I wasn't, and then I was on it and he wasn't. And it was one of my friends I was talking to that brought that to my attention, that she was expressing gratitude that like, oh, sometimes when I'm just not on it and he's super disapproving of me is because I needed to be called out. Like, I know that wasn't like the best way to react, and it helps us reflect, right? But watch out around here when both of us are not on our game, because we both get fired up, all right? And it's happened, and things happen and get messy pretty quick. But I think this is all to be expected. And we ebb and flow in and out of the days that we have thoughts that were put together and things are going well, and the days that we have thoughts where we just aren't anywhere near that and things are crappy and how could it be worse and things like that. But the goal isn't perfection here. It's just progression. And we get to look back on that crappy day and know that we had crappy thoughts about everything that was going on and realize that that was our own doing. And then we get to choose differently for tomorrow. And maybe tomorrow we just want to see it as crappy again. Then we'll feel crappy again. And maybe one day we'll catch on. But what happens when one of you is off their game more often than the other? I'll tell you what it looks like through the years in our home, because there's been I was just a people pleaser. So basically, I just pretended for years and camouflaged myself like as a chameleon for a long time. Okay. And I'll just own that because it brought up all sorts of other problems that I had with my health and my well being. But I would have been seen telling my friends in like jest, even like how when my husband goes back on shift for his 48-hour or more shift at the fire department, I have to undo what parenting he did during all those days he had home. You know, or my kids would say, Mama, it feels different when Dad's gone. I like it. It's like, and then I have this little vision of them like reenacting this slump on their shoulders, like they've relaxed and took a deep breath in, like a big dramatic relax. And I would notice how tense I got when certain things would happen around the house that would set off my youngest or my oldest or my husband or whatever, right? Like none of us enjoy it when someone gets set off, and we just don't all agree on what's a big deal and what isn't. So for some of us, we're like, what is your problem? And for others, it's like, this is the end of the world. I'm going to die. And that's just the dynamic of family. Okay. So when we parent differently, something happens with our kids and you and your partner have like different thoughts about it. And a few things happen. You'll both think you're right. That's the first thing that happens. Like you make an assessment, he makes an assessment, and you both are right. Okay. And that's just a fact because that's what's in your heads. And who cares if it's true or not? You're both right. And you both think you know what's best. And that's where it all starts. So you'll both believe that you're the one who knows just what to do to fix this. And it has to do with a lot of things like how you were raised and what you believe should happen and the intensity and maybe how much sleep you got or if you're hungry or not, right? There's all these factors. But by default, if you're right, then the other person's wrong, probably no matter what they do, unless they're going to do exactly what you're thinking in your head. So one of you begins to address the situation, and the other one is left in their mind thinking, I would totally do it differently. So their thoughts are not supportive towards what you're doing or saying. And this is just how it all starts. It's how it all goes down. And it only goes so far until maybe the one who has all the thoughts of you're doing it wrong can't handle it. And instead of handling the situation at hand, you're now in a new situation together on who's right and who gets to parent and what way to do it. And now you're in this new situation. You're both trying to show why you are right and why they're not, and why it shouldn't be handled the way they were thinking and why our way's best. Okay, so I think I've got my point across now. I think I keep repeating myself. One of the main points that I want you to know is that parenting is not about power or control or making sure that it all gets done in a certain way. I've had it heard explained to me this way, like we're all rationally self-interested. So we're all going to rationalize to what us ourselves have decided and are interested and feel is right. Okay, so that means we get to choose what we're passionate about based on our own values. And unfortunately, we don't value the same things. So we parent differently because we value different things. And you know what I've valued? I already kind of mentioned it. I valued peace, which if you're a people pleaser, you have the opposite of peace. But what I thought I was doing was making peace because the people around me weren't arguing anymore. But people pleasers have chaos inside them because they're not being true to themselves. I placed my value on whatever I had to do to make everyone else around me happy. And if I couldn't, then I just allowed them to be as mean as they wanted to be. And I conformed to being very agreeable out of fear. I would get more anger against me, and that was just my survival. And I hid in it. And I was really never feeling, and I never addressed myself. I just changed like a chameleon to be something that made others happy at all cost and at the cost of myself, unfortunately, which never worked. And I added to the problem until I ended up with health problems. And I did not know how to speak or explain my position clearly. Now, with a lot of coaching and self-coaching over the years, and I can help you do this too. If you're falling in this category, do not do this to yourself. It's very worth it to address your own feelings and to find your voice in your truth so you have a say and you're not just so worried about the reaction and everyone else deserves attention in the room but you, right? Just notice if you do this because I can help you get out of that as a parent. But I couldn't and didn't know how to explain my position clearly. And I didn't know what to say, but who would know what to say when you're thinking that it's all them? All of them are chaos and I'm the one keeping my cool, right? Only a people pleaser would say that. Like, I'm the one keeping it cool. Like, I'm the peacemaker. I can manipulate these guys to make them happy by my, responses and reactions and just let them have at me like I'm a doormat. But it didn't go well for me. But also, if the spouse values being right, so if you have a people pleaser and someone who needs to be right all the time, then they always have things figured out. And the way they see it is just fact. And you don't even know what you're doing because this is what it's meant to be. And then they're mad because, like, don't play so innocent. You know that was you. They believe it's all calculated and that you're doing it to them on purpose, and they just know. All right? So, like, who wins in that scenario too? But notice how the kids respond to our values. So when you're parenting differently and you have different values, they know what your values and priorities are. They know one of you values being right, and saying how it is and telling them where the bear lives. And then they know who else is just not really going to say anything or stand up for anything and just end up crying in a corner too. Like, kids will come to one parent for one thing and go to another parent for another thing. They'll also talk to one parent about different topics, and they'll learn to rely on another parent for support in different areas. But our strengths of being different are amazing because it suits them in their developmental and their nurturing needs, because it's different for them at different times. So they'll come to you at certain times, they'll come to your spouse at a certain times, and that's a good thing. So no one needs to be offended, like, well, why do they come to you with this problem all the time? We don't need to get envious of each other. We're just glad somebody's there for them, and we work together as a team. And so it's a really great thing. It only goes bad when you jump in, which I've done plenty of, and I've learned this one by repeated mistakes, like, to nauseam. But it sounds a lot like this in my mind. Like, as a mom, I'm supposed to blank. Like, what? Protect them from the yelling dad, or fix this or stop that and not let this happen. Like, they're supposed to respect each other and listen, and they can't say those things. They're not supposed to say those things. Or they've got to stop yelling, and I shouldn't be treated like this. Why are they talking to me this way? This is so disrespectful. That's what it sounded like in my mind. And these are the mistakes I repeated to nauseam. All right? There's literally no upside to thinking these thoughts. Who made you manager over what they choose to feel or act or what they're upset about? There's so many angles to undo this, and I'm just going to go through a bunch of them. But rather than being angry at any of them, which, by the way, just joins them in the anger, like, they're angry, now you're angry that they're angry, so let's not add to it. Your work to do is to manage those thoughts that you have, those doubting, judgmental and opinionated thoughts towards being against them and against what they're doing. You're not against them as a person, you're just attacking their character, or not attacking their character, but you're attacking their behavior, like what they're saying, the words that are coming out of their mouth. You're, like, so disapproving of them. So you show up looking like the enemy, right? But a good parent is in management of themselves. So when you're trying to change them, that's not being a good parent. You allow them to be the way they are and love them anyways. But you notice your own anger and your own frustration when they are not blank. Fill in the blank there. Do you make it mean, though, that you're not a good mom or dad because you didn't do anything about that situation? Maybe you feel like it should be so important that you do something about it, but then when you didn't know what to do, you're making it mean that something's bad or wrong with you. Sometimes we're just confused and don't know what to do. But what I'd like to offer you as a redo is just to simply be present with what's happening and be in the moment with managing yourself. The good, the bad, and the ugly, like, nobody gets to be right or wrong. All humans are a mess. We all do stuff. We all feel stuff at all different times in all different situations. So sometimes people don't get along. and nothing's wrong and nothing needs to be fixed. It's how we learn and we evolve and we grow to know ourselves better in the process. Like, oh, now I know how I react when I'm like hungry or tired or sleep deprived, or this person says this thing that I really don't like. Now I know myself better. And then when I tell them how it makes me feel, like, not that they can make me feel, but when you say that, I think this and that thought makes me feel this thing, like, we can just be very vulnerable. So just know that nothing's gone wrong and it doesn't need to be fixed. We are the ones who feel awful when we say it shouldn't be this way. Well, guess what? Apparently not. Apparently they are arguing. Apparently those two do hate each other right now, or there's lots of overreacting going on. And oh well, I guess they choose that. And then you feel better because you're like, well, guess they're just going to be mad right now. And they get to be. I bet that feels awful for them to choose that. Like, I don't like being mad, and I'm not really mad about this situation. Maybe I wish it were different, but I may even be wrong thinking that there should be no fighting right now. Apparently, fights are supposed to happen. They're meant to happen. Apparently, people are meant to get mad, and there's anger and there's judges, and it's totally okay for me to be sad and disappointed and grieve about it. But when I add fear into it, it looks a lot like getting into the details with them and trying to control it and having too many suggestions and digging around for more drama and dragging out all of those intense emotions. Okay, so the opposite to conflict is everyone's learning. You can't even feel their conflict. I know some people are like, oh, but I can feel a conflict. And believe me, I was there. I thought this. People say they can feel other people's pain, but they just have their own intense thoughts about others feeling pain. That's what's causing them to feel. You can't, like, there's no absorbing it from others, like what some of the trends are saying. But you know why there's nothing you can do? Why is there nothing you can do sometimes? Because it's their relationship, not yours. It's not your responsibility. It's between them. So you can try to impact or influence it by showing up in both their lives individually with like no agenda, no convincing, no getting in the weeds with them on it or taking sides. Just make sure when you do talk to them individually, you're at a place of peace with it. You're allowing it to be there. It's okay. You're allowing them their learning and their experiences and their relationship the way they want it to be. And I love this practice too. Listen to this one. If I had a crystal ball and I could look into the future and tell you with certainty that these situations are exactly what's needed in order to get somewhere different in their life, maybe it seems to ruin things for a lot of years. But whether it gets resolved all the way one day or not, I have a crystal ball and I can see that you end up resolving your side and your end and your judgments about it. And you get to feel love and connection in your whole future instead of pain and disdain and harboring grudges alongside them. You get to feel good. That's a good crystal ball, right? So the best thing you can do is let them and know that you're there for both people in love and support. And that's what feels good. Right? You're only in control of you. Trust that they know what to do and that they're going to make a big mess of it, and maybe they'll clean it up later, maybe they won't. But it builds them when they get to borrow your strong belief. Right? You just allow them and let it be as it's supposed to. And just be like, I trust that you know what you're doing. Connection is healing, my friends, and it can be a trick, but it's very, very worth getting back to healing and getting back to love and getting back to connection every single time. But let them borrow your belief. You believe, you trust they know what to do so big that it builds them. They can borrow that trust and that strong belief that you have in them, right? Okay, well, if you've thought of anybody while you're listening, share it with them before you forget. Because the heavens reach us through each other. Be that person that heaven can count on. We need each other, you guys. And please rate and subscribe. I forget to say that a lot because I really don't care about like followers and followings and numbers and stuff like that. But I do need subscribers and reviews and ratings so other people can find this and they can be empowered too. So do a favor for all of us and let this podcast find those people who are looking for it. All right? Okay, well, that ends this episode. So till next week. Thanks. Love you. Bye.